Hi, we're going to talk about something that is probably the most well-known theorem in mathematics, which is called the Pythagorean Theorem, which dates back about over 2000 years for sure. So what does it say? Let's say in any right triangle, that is a triangle that has one right angle, the following relationship is always going to be true. So we have two sides that are called legs, the sides that include the right angle, and then the side opposite of the right angle, which is actually the longest side, is c, and it's called the hypotenuse, and a squared plus b squared equals c squared is always going to work. So what that means to us is if you have a right triangle and you know two sides, you can find the third one using that. So let's take a look at some problems. So we're given two sides in the right triangle. A and b will represent legs and c is the hypotenuse, and we need to find the third side. If needed, we're going to round to the nearest hundredth because you may have something that's going to be not a whole number. So we know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So what we can do here is 6 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. So 36 plus 64 equals c squared. That means c squared equals 100. C equals a square root of 100, which is 10. This is our answer. Example 2, 5 and 12. So same thing. We set up 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. 5 squared is 25. 12 squared is 144. Right? So we got c squared equals 169. C equals square root of 169, which is 13. Okay, example 3. I have one side that's 8, another side that's 14. Equals c squared. So this is 64. This is 14 squared is 196, right? 14 squared, let's double check, 196. C squared. So we're going to add that. 64 plus 196 is 260. So c squared equals 260. We do have a number that is not a perfect square. So when you do square root of 260, you are going to get a number that's going to be approximately 16.12 if you round it to the nearest hundredth. Okay, it continues on, but it rounds to the nearest. If you round to the nearest hundredth, it's 16.12. One thing that you want to remember, which is very, very important, remember that the hypotenuse, which is c, is always going to be the longest side in the triangle. So please be careful when you do your math. You keep that in mind. Okay, so what we do now is we have sides when one of the legs is not given. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to set this up. So 10 squared plus b squared equals 26 squared. So this is 100 plus b squared equals 26 squared is 676. So what we need to do here is we're going to need to subtract 100 on both sides. That means we're going to get b squared equals 576. And b is going to be the square root of 576, which is 24. Okay. Similar idea. A squared is the unknown plus 4 squared equals 7 squared. So it's a squared plus 16 equals 49. Subtract 16. So a squared equals 33. A equals square root of 33. So we need a calculator for that. And this is going to be approximately 5.74. Okay, moving on. 19 squared plus b squared equals 28 squared. So 19 squared is 361 plus b squared, and 28 squared, we're going to do that, is going to be 784. So minus 361, right? So b squared equals, it's going to be 784 minus 361, which is 423. B equals square root of 423, which is going to be a decimal. 423 is going to be 20.57. It's 566 or 57. Okay. Now, a Pythagorean theorem can be used for real-life applications. So we have problems like this. We have a lighthouse where you're looking at the boat. The boat is 180 meters from the bottom of the lighthouse. The lighthouse itself is 25 meters long. You should be able to see a right triangle here. This is going to be C that we're looking for. So we should know that 25 squared plus 180 squared equals C squared. C squared equals, so 25 squared plus 180 squared is going to give us 33,025. C is going to be the square root of 33,025. So the square root of that number is going to be 181.73 meters. Find the length of the diagonal in the rectangle. Obviously, when you draw a diagonal, you should be able to see that this is a right triangle here. So we know that 10 squared plus 14 squared equals C squared. 10 squared plus 14 squared is 100 plus 196 equals C squared. So C squared equals 296. And C is going to be the square root of 296, which is approximately square root of 296 is 17.2 if you round it to the nearest hundredth, because it's 204, so 17.2, and you can write 17.20. Okay. I have a few more problems. A tree snapped during a thunderstorm as shown in the picture. So tree snaps here. This part is 12 feet. This remaining part is 20 feet. And we want to find how far now is the top of the tree from its bottom. So we can see a right triangle here. This is X here. So this is C. This is A. And we can do A squared plus B squared. Let's say this is our B. So 12 squared plus b squared equals 20 squared. It's 144 plus b squared equals 400 minus 144 on both sides. So we get b squared equals 400 minus 144 is 256. And b is going to be the square root of 256, which is 16 feet. Okay. Now we want to find this. If the diagonal of the square is 10, how long is each side? Okay, so if this is 10, and this is x, this is x, we have a right triangle here. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say, okay, so x squared, which is one leg, plus another x squared again, which is another leg, which is the same, is going to equal 10 squared. X squared plus x squared is 2x squared, 10 squared is 100. So we divide both sides by 2, x squared equals 50. Right? That means x equals square root of 50, and square root of 50 is going to give us approximately 7.07. Okay. These are very simple problems. The only thing that is very important here is understand, if it's not a word problem, you need to make sure you understand which side is which. Please be very careful that C is always the longest side, the hypotenuse. So whichever way you set this up, it needs to be that C is the longest side. So please watch out for that. If it's something that has a real world application, make sure you draw a picture unless it's given already to you, and just go from there. I actually do have two problems where a picture is not given to you, and you just need to make sure you do that, and it's the same concept. So, example 11. A 12-foot ladder needs to be set up in such a way so that its top is going to sit at the top of a 10-foot wall. how far will the bottom of the letter be from the bottom of the wall. So obviously we have a wall, that's a vertical wall. We have some ground here. The wall ends here, and we want to set the letter so the top of the letter and the top of the wall match. The letter is 12 foot tall. The wall is 10 foot tall. And we want to find this distance here, right? And this obviously is a right triangle. And what we need to do is set this up. So we're going to get 10 squared plus x squared, one leg squared plus another leg squared, equals the hypotenuse squared. It is 100 plus x squared equals 144. Subtract 100 on both sides. X squared equals 44. So x equals square root of 44. And square root of 44. Well then, what did I do? Square root of 44 is approximately 6.63 feet. Okay. And our last problem in this lesson is, you're probably familiar with these TVs. They're characterized by the dimensions of their diagonals. Well, we say a diagonal is this, diagonal is that. If we have a particular TV whose ratio of the length to the height is 16 to 9, and the diagonal is 52, what are the actual length and the height of the TV? So let's make a diagram. We have a TV. It's a rectangle, and we know its diagonal is 52 inches, right? We don't know the length and the width exactly, but we know they're in the ratio of 16 to 9. So the height will be 9x and the length will be 16x. That's 16 to 9 ratio here. And we are going to write an equation based on that. So we're going to do the same thing. This is a right triangle here. We're going to do 9x quantity squared plus 16x quantity squared equals 52 squared. This is 81x squared plus 256x squared equals 52 squared is 2704. So we add these two terms, they're like terms. So 81 plus 256 is 337 x squared equals 2704, right? So we get x squared is 2704 divided by 337. I know it does not divide completely, so we're not even going to do it. But what we're going to do for x is going to be the square root of 2704 divided by 337, right? So we're going to do that. Square root 2704 divided by 337. That is going to give us that x is approximately 2.833. I know we typically round to the nearest hundredth, is what I told you in the beginning, but this is an intermediate result and I'm going to keep it that way. So, but does that answer the question? Not quite, because this is just the value of x. So to get the actual length and the width and the height, so the height is going to be 9 times that number, 833. So, and the length is going to be 16 times 2.833. So after you do that, 9 times 2.833 is going to give us 25.5. So the height is 25.5 inches, right? And for the length, it's going to be 16 times 2.833, which is going to be 45.33 inches. So this is our length, this is our width. So this is an example of a couple of problems where you do not have a diagram, but you make a diagram that's always going to be something related to right triangles. Okay, I hope this was helpful.